mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness. Hey everybody, it is your girl, Loli Quisha. I just want to thank you guys for stopping by and checking in with me. If you haven't already, go back and do the video before this one, which is the reading of the King James version, Genesis chapter 1, because for this video, we are going to be discussing the reading. And I don't want you to be lost. So if you haven't already, go back and listen to that one. And you don't have to worry about reading it by yourself because I will be there reading it with you. So for this particular video, we are going to be discussing that chapter, Genesis chapter 1, and the King James Version. So I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't really have a great sophisticated format on how I plan on doing this. And I didn't really want to look up the way other people do it because I wanted to be fully led by the Spirit of God. I wanted Him to show me how to do this. So I don't really have a format other than, of course, reading and discussing it. But I don't have like a format or an outline as to how I am going to be doing this. And I did not want it to stop me. So that's why I am still continuing with this because I don't want the enemy to be able to win and to be able to have victory over the fact that I'm somebody that likes for things to be really perfect and really organized. And the fact that this isn't, I don't want it to stop me from doing what I feel like the Lord has called me to do. So this is me also being transparent with you guys in my walk, showing you what it looks like when you are moving forward in the Lord, even though you are unsure about how to do it, but you are sure that you heard Him tell you to do it. So this is what it looks like for me anyway. But one of the things that I want to do is just start out with a few things that I think will help with the understanding of the reading. Well, it helped me anyways, just knowing like a few foundational things. It just gave me a little bit of a basis of where to start from in my mind. And a few words that stood out to me. And then ultimately, we'll go over a few scriptures that stood out to me. Now, again, I am not a scholar, a Bible scholar. I'm not a pastor or any of these things. I don't have any formal education or instruction on how this should be done. I'm literally just doing it based off the way I'm feeling it in my heart and my spirit. And that means that you may see or hear me do something incorrectly or what you may consider to be out of order. But just bear with me and, stick along and see how the Lord transforms me and transforms the way that this Bible study is going to be done ultimately in the end. So I just want to start, like I said, with a few foundational facts. And one thing with reading the Bible, because I haven't read it all fully and I haven't read it all fully in order, but there are some stories, particular books that I've read that I know like different stories of the Bible. But I've just decided that I'm going to start from the beginning and just go all the way through. But before, I started to read from the beginning, I was reading just different stories. And I realized that, well, I'm realizing now that reading the Bible in order, it doesn't begin with Jesus. It actually begins with God creating the earth and everything within it. And then as the story progresses, eventually Jesus is introduced. But before He is, us as the readers, we're taking on a journey of we're taking on a journey of origin and history. it goes into saying how things were established. And a lot of the things from the beginning, if you read from the beginning, you get to see what some of the original intent for a lot of the things that we may know, but we may not know, like where did it come from or how did it originate. And it also provides critical details that allow for a deeper understanding and meaning. So yeah, I'm just going to go into a few of the things that I also think are important to note. So one of the things is BC. In my life, I've heard BC all the time, and I've found that it stands for before Christ. Christ, which basically it's the time frame that is marking the years before the birth of Jesus. So if there's a date that you see 400 BC, that would be 400 years before Christ was born. And then AD, it's so funny because I remember hearing AD as well, always thinking that that meant after death. But I had to think about it because Jesus ain't dead, so it can't mean after death. Like, yeah, he did sacrifice himself, but he was resurrected, so he's not dead. But what it actually stands for is, and I may not be pronouncing this correctly because this is a Latin phrase, and it stands for AD. It stands for Anno Domini, ANNODOMINI, and basically it means in the year of our Lord, meaning years after his birth. So if you were to hear 100 AD, it would be 100 years after the birth of Jesus. So that's funny how, there's so much or so many people that try to discredit uh, Jesus, but we literally have, we literally had a time frame where we described it as before the birth of Jesus and after the birth of Jesus. So, but it's just so funny. So anyway, moving on. So also there are two different testaments of the Bible, and that is the Old Testament and the New Testament. So just to give you a few facts and a little bit of understanding about the two and what the differences are between them. So for the Old Testament, it contains 39 books, and they are all written in Hebrew, and they are all before the birth of Jesus, and they focus on creation, early human history, and God's covenant with the nation of Israel. So the New Testament is going to contain 27 books, and they are written in Greek originally, and they were during the first century AD, after the birth of Jesus. Remember, we learned that. Focusing on the life, the teachings, the death, and resurrection of Jesus and the start of the Christian church. Okay, so another fact about the Old Testament is that it was written over many centuries, roughly from the 1400s to 400 BC, and mostly it was written in ancient Hebrew with small parts in Aramaic, whereas the New Testament was written over a shorter time span, less than 100 years, mostly in the mid to late first century in Common Greek. All right, so the Old Testament, it sets the foundation and promises a Messiah. The New Testament shows that Jesus fulfills those promises. And the Old Testament also establishes the Old Covenant based on the law at Mount Sinai, and the New Testament introduces a new covenant of grace and salvation through Jesus. So those are just a few little facts about, just some foundational things that I thought that would also help with us as we're reading the Bible. So another thing is there are a few terms or words that stood out to me as I was reading, and I kind of jotted them down prior to reading. And I just want to go over them a little bit before I go over the actual scriptures or what stood out to me in the scripture. But of course, with Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, it says that in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. One part of me was like created, because if you notice, there are other, as you go down into the reading, it starts to say that he made things. And clearly, if there was not a difference between the two words, there would not be two words used. So it piqued me to see what created meant compared to what made meant. And created actually means formed from nothing, miraculous. And then even when you look the word up in Hebrew, created, it has multiple meanings actually. It means exclusively used for divine creation, signifying bringing something new into existence from nothing, right? And then it says, actually, it only has that one definition, and it's bara, B-A-R-A. And this particular word, created, it is restricted to God's actions, emphasizing the divine and supernatural act of creation. It's a unique term for divine, miraculous. So that specifically is just talking about not Jesus, but God in the way that he created the earth. So this is like a divine created. And it's not just like, that anyone can use this term bara, because this specific term bara, as a different translation of the word, it specifically signifies a divine creation. So like you wouldn't say bara for you and I or anyone else. This would specifically be a term for a divine creation. So only God could bara or create from nothing in that sense. Let's see here. I got a few notes that I'm going over. So also there's a word in the next scripture too that says that, and the earth was without form. So form also stood out to me, so I looked that up as well. Form means to create, to arrange, or develop. There are a few Hebrew words, and I'm probably going to slaughter them, but it means tezura. It says tezura, which is Tzura. I don't know if that T is silent, but it refers to shape, appearance, or the abstract form of something. Another definition of form in the Hebrew is yatsar, which is Yatsar. It means to fashion, mold, or create, often used in a potter's context. And the last definition of form in the Hebrew is tavnit, which is Tavnit, and it refers to pattern, structure, or model. So just to show you those words, the terms of those words. The definition of those terms. Also, void. It means total emptiness, a vacuum, or a feeling of lost. These are the English definitions. It means completely empty, invalid, or having no legal force. Now, the Hebrew definition means emptiness, void, or waste. Signifies an uninhibited, unformed, or chaotic state before creation. And that is bohu. That's the Hebrew word for void. It has a few variations. Bohu is one, and that's the one that I said. Emptiness, void, or waste signifies an uninhibited, unformed, or chaotic state before creation. That's Bohu. And then also, they say that it is often paired with tohu, which is another Hebrew definition for void, which means formless chaos, to be described as a desolate, unproductive, or empty wasteland, confusion, or vanity. So, I don't know, just looking at all of these, it just makes me, And the reason why I like to look up the definition, because for me, the definition gives to me a better picture in my mind to imagine. So if it's saying that in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth, so okay, knowing this definition that it's created from nothing and that it's a divine word, it just makes me envision just like, I don't know. It just makes me envision just like something happening. Like, I can see why they said the Big Bang, because they truly cannot explain the event. Like, they can't explain the event. And in my mind, knowing that created means coming from nothing, it does seem like it would just be absolutely nothing to just something sporadically happening, i.e. the Big Bang. I don't call it that, but in my mind, it does give me something to visualize. And then moving on to, and the earth was without form and void, hearing these Hebrew definitions of void and what was the other word? Form, without form. So the Hebrew definition, where it says that it was formless or chaos to be described, a desolate, unproductive, or empty wasteland. Um, so yeah, just to think of it as that, because in my mind, normally I just see it as just a big ball of water. But that big ball of water in God's eyes was also seen as unproductive, wasteland, confusion, and then it also says vanity. And vanity means excessive pride, conceit, or admiration of one's own appearance, achievements, or abilities. A shallow, self absorbed, or narcissistic attitude. It also means futility, worthlessness. So, yeah, it represents a state of complete lack of purpose, order, or form, which God subsequently transformed into a structured, purposeful creation. So, I don't know. Don't mind me. I kind of just go a little deep with my mind, thoughts, and just the stuff. So I probably have to make this one separate, because I'm not even into the scriptures yet. I'm just literally going over the terms that stood out to me before we get to the scripture. So there also are other terms. Let's see, which one did I use? So when it says that about darkness being on the face of the deep. So of course I also looked up the word darkness. And I'm looking up these words in Hebrew because remember, the Old Testament was originally written in Hebrew. So if I want to understand the correct context that they are using these particular words that are standing out to me, then of course I will have to go and translate it in Hebrew to understand the actual context or the actual way that they were meaning this particular phrase or scripture. So that's why I'm going in Hebrew. And again, I'm only doing the words that kind of stood out to me. Just know that as you read, if there are anything or any words that stand out to you, then you could do the same thing. The first thing that I do is look it up in English, and then of course I compare it with the Hebrew or the Greek, depending on if it's New Testament or Old Testament. Okay, that was a little side note. So back to darkness. So darkness, it says, is partial or total absence of light. It symbolizes evil and ignorance, secrecy, or deep somber colors. Now that's the English definition. So the Hebrew definition, oh God, these words, is choshek or koshek, which is CHOSHEK or KHOSHEKH. And it refers to a lack of light, darkness of night, metaphorical darkness, misery, and destruction. It also represents ignorance, wickedness, death, or the absence of God's presence. So when it says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, that's what was upon the face of the deep. The darkness, the absence of God's presence, ignorance, wickedness, death, all those things is what darkness. And this is the Hebrew definition of darkness. Also, on the face of the deep. So I looked up deep. English deep means extending far downward, inward, or backward from a surface. Also, intense, profound, or complex concepts. Like, oh, yeah, that was deep, like that. So, the Hebrew meaning, the word is tehom, Tehom, and it means an abyss. And it means a primeval ocean or chaotic, uncontrolled water. So clearly, that's the deep that we were experiencing from this scripture, because it says an abyss, primeval ocean, which I'm gonna explain what that is, or chaotic, uncontrolled water, and that's literally what the earth was before the Lord got to it. And then it also says it signifies dark, mysterious, and chaotic state before creation. It also represents danger, death, or profound depths. So just to go back to the primeval ocean, I might be pronouncing that incorrectly. Some of these words are so new to me, y'all. So please don't get on me. So the primeval ocean, it's the immense early water bodies, that covered the earth around 4.5 billion years ago. Initially thought to be fresh water before evolving into CO2 rich, acidic, and mineral heavy. Oh, before evolving into a CO2 rich, acidic, and mineral heavy environment. So it changed. And then it says a primordial ocean is an ocean that exists at or from the very beginning of time. So these two oceans are just like the early historic oceans before any and everything got here. Probably wasn't even anything swimming in it because God is the one that put things in it. So it literally was just water. Um, it literally was just water. And so, yeah. So another word, which was actually in the definition of darkness that I wanted to look up, but chaos was within the definition of darkness, so I wanted to look that up. And chaos refers to a state of utter disorder, confusion, or a disorganized, jumbled mass, often signifying a complete lack of organization, uncontrollability, right? So that's the English definition. The Hebrew definition, the word is, it's the same as the tohu va bohu. Oh gosh, I'm so pronouncing this wrong, but it's TOHUVABOHU. And it's formless and void or unformed wasteland. It's commonly used to describe a mess, disarray, or total chaos. These terms are used to denote not only physical disorder, but also spiritual and emotional confusion. Okay, that was nice. So, yeah, those were the words that I went over. It's probably sound a little wacky right now because I was all over the place with it, but I'm not going to feel bad about it. I'm gonna just do it, and as I get better, you guys will see the Lord's grace as He continues to stretch me and grow me. But I'm not gonna stress about it not being perfect. So again, just to reiterate some of the terms that I defined, is created, form, void, vanity, because some of these words are within the definition of some of these words. Darkness, deep, chaos. All right. Now, as I was reading, I think I kind of got so deep into analyzing other things that the words weren't speaking to me as much. So I kind of stopped there. Not saying that there are not other words that will speak to me later, but for this particular Bible study that I was doing in this session, that's all that I got. Now, feel free, of course, to do your own if there are words or phrases that are standing out to you. because this has to also be personal to you, because you want to be able to establish something sincere. So if you are hearing things and feeling things in your spirit as we're going over this, please jot it down so that you can go back to it later. Because of course, you could always, or you could even stop this and go to it now, because you could always come back to what I'm saying. But yeah, don't ignore the things that are jumping up in your spirit. Okay. So I think I'm gonna move on to the next part of it, which is where I will be analyzing some of the scriptures and how they stood out to me, or what they spoke to me, what they said to me. One thing, though, I do want to touch back on really quickly before I move forward, because I did mention created, but I didn't mention made. So just really quick, created is to bring something entirely new and unique into existence, often from nothing or using imagination. Then made refers to a construction or an assembling of something from existing material. For example, you make a chair out of wood. You're making a chair out of something that's already existing wood. So this made me think of, other planets in our solar system. So the Earth is truly unique in its existence, as far as our atmosphere, our elements, and our life compared to other planets. And Earth is something entirely new, and it was created from God's imagination, and we get to watch Him break down the process of what He imagined. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I had an experience. Well, not really an experience, but I was exposed to some information about the solar system while I'm going over the creation of the Earth. But basically, I learned a little bit about, which planet was it? Uranus. And it says that Uranus is only solid at its core, and that basically it's a thick and gradually dense, gaseous, cloudy, pressured, freezing cold planet. So just with hearing that, it definitely confirms that the Lord created, the earth from nothing, from His own imagination, because as you can see, other planets that we have within our solar system, Earth is unique. Earth is like nothing else that's out there. Literally, of course, there are so much more of space that's unexplored. But as far as what we know, there's no other planet like, or as far as what we know and what we can prove, there's no other planet like Earth. There's no other life like Earth. There's no other planet that operates like Earth, or that has all of the same types of elements like Earth that we as humans in this lifetime or this generation know of. Now, there are, I'm not a science person, so I'm not going to sit here and say what there is out there, because I don't know. But I do know that I haven't heard about Earth twice. Like, I know that there are similar planets with similar atmospheres and similar existences, but I don't quite know of any planet that exists like Earth. So it just, to me, was just more evidence proving that, Earth is truly unique, and it's something that was truly made, not made, but actually created. He created Earth. He didn't just make it from things that were existing. So as I spoke about previously, you know that the beginning of the Bible is not the beginning of Jesus or God, but the beginning of the heaven and the earth, because it states, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So that means that in order for God to create the heaven and the earth, it means that He would have had to exist before the heaven and the earth and everything on the heaven and the earth, including time and everything else. So God is outside of all of those things. So it says that that His Spirit moved, not specifically that God moved. Let's see. Just looking over some of my notes. So one of the things that I've noticed, like in chapter 1, verse 3, it says, "And God said, let there be light, and there was light." So to me, that says that God speaks to things and that they obey him. So his creations obey him. And then in 4, it says that God saw the light, that it was good, and that God divided the light from the darkness. So God, in this sense, he waited to see the results after what he speaks, and he expects for it to be good, or he only accepts good because it says that it was good. So he was looking for it to be good. It had to be good. So in my mind, he speaks to things and then he waits for the results but expects for the thing to be good. So those are just personal notes that I take for myself, because when I read it, I almost feel like I know that the Lord said that we are created in his image. So if that's the way he does things, I feel like that's the way that he wants us to do things as well. So he wants us to speak to things. He wants us to wait for the results and to expect for it to be good. That's what I feel about it. Okay, so it says that, let's see here. So it says that God created the heaven and the earth, and it says that the Spirit of God went out over the face of the waters, and God spoke. He spoke to the light, and he divided the light from the darkness. But I noticed that he did not speak to the darkness. He didn't speak to the darkness. And he called light day, and darkness he called night. And he also introduced times and parts of the days, morning and evening. Okay, so it says in 1:6 that God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." So when I heard that, I'm like, okay, so it's different types of waters, because we're dividing the waters from the waters. So, it's different types of waters. And then not only that, just meaning separation in the water. And then too, just thinking about how miraculous God is, like how he can put the firmament within the water, and how he has so much divine power that he does not allow the firmament or the earth under the firmament to be consumed by the water that it is within. And it almost makes me think about like us as man and earth. Like we are a creation of God, and he set us in the waters, which symbolically is the earth. However, although we are his creation, he has the power to protect us and put us within this firmament that allows us to be in the world but not consumed by the world. It's just a little metaphor that I see as I see him and what he's doing in the firmament. As y'all stick with me, y'all gonna learn how my mind works. Don't call me crazy. Don't think I'm crazy. Just ride with me. Just ride with me. So okay, let's see what else here. So another thing about God, speaking to something and waiting for the results and saying that it was good, that also was him affirming himself. Even though the creation of the world and all within it wasn't completed, every time God completed one step in the process, he said that it was good. And I think that we need to take a note from God on that, because I think that sometimes us as humans, like even me today is my perfect example. I'm wanting for it to be perfect and wanting for it to be complete, but I have to just take the first step and say it was good. So when I'm done with this, it was good, because I have to do things in steps. Even God, the creator, didn't create everything in one day. You know what I mean? So me knowing that, it comforts me when I don't get it all done, or when I don't feel like I can get it all done. Not that I feel like that's how God felt, but he shows us that even as God, he didn't get it all done in one day. And he could have. So and then he affirmed himself. And I think for us as humans, those affirmations is what powers us to keep going. And then another thing that I also noticed is that when God created the heaven and the earth and its contents, that he did it in order, in a specific order. He did not make the trees before he made the earth. He did not make the animals before he made the light. And I know it sounds obvious to us now, but he's God, so he is the one that knew what the order should be. Um, but he basically still did these things in order, you know? And I think that that is a testament to us as well. Things are to be done in order, which means that we are to organize. Um, so yeah, though that stood out to me as well. So another thing that I'm not fully sure of, but it definitely stood out to me, was when God divided the light from the darkness, and He called the light day, and the darkness night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. I always wonder why I said evening and morning, but then I also remember that when we were first introduced to the earth, it was dark, and God made light. So I'm wondering if that's the reason why it says that, because we started with darkness and then we went into day, and then after that he said the evening and the morning were the first day, because the evening and then the morning. So I don't know, I'm still trying to figure that out, you guys, but that stood out to me and I just wanted to note that. And maybe if one of you guys know anything more about that, you can make a note of it and educate me, because I'm definitely open to be educated. I don't know everything, which I will reiterate a lot. Also, there were certain things when God created, He said it was good, and then other things He said it was so. So I'm still trying to determine the difference between the two, or why He said that, because I'm really big on knowing that when God says something, He don't just be talking. So if God has something to say, and if there's a difference between something, then there's a reason. I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm just noting these things. And like I said, if there is if there is ever anything that you guys notice, put it in the comments. Tell me, even in the group. Sometimes we'll go over there. You just say, let's discuss, It's iron sharpening iron. I do not know everything, as I've stated so many times, and I'm learning, and I'm open to hearing what others have to say. Of course, believers and followers of Christ, though, only. Well, not only, but as far as teaching me and educating me in God, in Jesus. That's what I mean. Then also, in verse 16, it says that God made two great lights, but it didn't say He created them. But that makes sense, because remember, we learned the difference between created and made, and He had already created light. So that's why He was able to make the two great lights, because He had already created light. So see, that's what I like about some of the early research, because as you do it, it helps better understand. Because before, I remember I did write this down as not understanding, well, why did He make the two great lights and not create them? But that's because He had already created light, and because light was already created, now He can make two great lights from the light that was already created. Got it? Okay. So the other thing that I want to do is go over the different days and what God created in each day. Okay, so on day one, the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the deep, and He said, "Let there be light." So on day one, God divided the light from the darkness, and He named the day and the night. In day two, God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters." The firmament was to divide the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. It was so, and then God called the firmament heaven. That's day two. On day three, God gathered the waters together unto one place and let dry land appear. He called the dry land earth. He gathered the waters together and called them seas. He saw that it was good, and the earth began to bring forth grass and herb yielding seed, fruit trees, seeds within himself. I'm sorry, the whose seed was within itself. Yes, and God saw that it was good. And day 4, he said, let there be light in the firmament to divide the day from the night, and for seasons and days and years. Let them be for lights in the firmament to light the earth. He made the stars. Okay. And day 5, the waters brought forth life. So he put life in the waters. He put life in the sky. And he blessed them, told them to be fruitful and multiply. And then God made the beasts of the field, the cattle, and the creeping thing. And then God made man. So it's literally like, that's day 6. And then day 7 is going to be in chapter 2. We'll talk about that. But day 7 is when he rested. But those were all the things that he did. And as I'm sitting here just thinking about it, so first he creates the environment. First he creates the earth. First he makes light, takes us out of the darkness, brings us his presence. Then he makes the heaven. Well, takes us out of the water, makes the heaven. Then he gives us land. Then after the land, he gives us vegetation and fruit, trees, and herbs. Then after that, he gives us time, because that's what signs and seasons and days and years. So he gives us time. Wow, so I never noticed that. So the animals and just the earth and everything was created before time. And then he creates the beast of the field and the creeping thing and tells it to multiply and be fruitful. And then he creates us. So it's like he creates this whole entire world. And then not only does he create us, he tells us to replenish and subdue and have dominion over everything. So it's like God just created the whole entire environment that we needed before we got here, and then he put us in it. And yeah, so that's where I am at with it. I just wanted to go over those last days. Now, bear with me, guys. I know that this probably, I don't even know what I was expecting, but I'm just grateful to the Lord that I did this. I'm grateful to the Lord that I took the time to be used by him. Like I said, this is my journey that I'm just being transparent and showing y'all what it looks like. I'm not perfect, y'all, but I am trying, and I'm so willing to show God my heart that I will let y'all laugh at me until I get it right. I don't care. But this is just me being transparent and showing y'all that y'all could do it too. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to start from this grand place. You just got to have the love of God in your heart and just try, because that's literally all I'm doing. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the first, I won't really call it a Bible study. It's really just us reading the Bible together and me just pointing out a few things that stood out to me and letting y'all hear how my brain go. But I did want to make sure that it's not just a reading, but that you guys can kind of get to know me so that it could also show a relationship. One thing that I know I'm learning about having a relationship with God is there's not many examples. There are so many people in the church that I've known throughout my life, and just seeing strangers where everybody kind of presents themselves as perfect, and they kind of show that, you know, you have to be perfect or you can't have any flaws or any shortcomings if you're going to come over here with the Lord. But truth be told, those the type that the Lord won't, because if you perfect, he can't do nothing with you. He can't help you. He can't mold you. And then also, if you feel like you're perfect, 9 times out of the 10, you're not even going to call on him. So I am more than happy to show my walk, to show my imperfections, to show my shortcomings and my insecurities, um, just so that you can see how God is going to work in me and how He's going to mold and change me, um, so that you can see a true walk in Christ, so that you don't have to feel any kind of way about your walk if it's not perfect, because mine's not either. And to be honest with you, the people in the church ain't either. They just don't show it to you. But I'm gonna show y'all. I'm gonna show y'all my walk, and hopefully it can be inspiring and really touch you in a way that I hope that it does. All in all, I'm doing this for the Lord, but I would love to win a soul. I would love for somebody to say, I was listening to Quisha, and she brought me closer to the Lord. She drawed me to the Lord. She planted a seed that made me more interested in the Lord. I would love to hear that. Like, that's my only goal with doing this, other than, just doing what the Lord told me to do. I would love for somebody to fall in love with God the way that I did. So, yeah, guys, I just want to thank y'all so much for joining me. Like I said, as we go along, this will get better. This will get and turn into whatever it's supposed to turn into. I just give God full reign over it. And I just want to thank y'all again for sitting here with me for almost 50 minutes to do this. And I hope that you guys come back. I hope this is not the last time that you come sit with me. And I hope that this is just the beginning of something beautiful. And yeah, until next time, guys. Love y'all. See you next time.